What's going on, everybody? It is Ryan Heath with Fantasy Points here, and welcome back again to Data Points. This is the show, as always, where I walk you through exactly how to leverage the Fantasy Points data suite to succeed this week in the divisional round DFS slate. So let's dive right in. What?
Why are you shaking your head? You're welcome.
So starting off with a little bit of a surprise, I didn't think I'd be saying this in the divisional round of the playoffs or really ever, because guys, Patrick Mahomes is only 6,000 on the DraftKings slate this week. That is insane. The last time Mahomes was priced at only 6,000 was the second game of his career, week 1 of 2018. This has not happened in literal years. He's always been overpriced in DFS over the past few years compared to his actual production, but that's not true anymore. And part of the reason for that is that Mahomes is much better in the playoffs, and he has been for years. You can see here, I'm in advanced passing. I've gone ahead and just filtered for only playoff games. We're in 2023 right now. You can see last year, even with no weapons, Mahomes averaging 21.3 DraftKings fantasy points in the playoffs. The year before that is going to be similar, 21.4 fantasy points per game in the playoffs. Keep in mind, that's close to 3.5x value just off of that $6,000 salary. And this is, again, a median, an average. What's the upside? 2021 in the playoffs, Mahomes was averaging over 35 DraftKings fantasy points per game. That was back when he had Tyreek Hill, of course. The offense is different now than it was in 2021. I would never argue otherwise, but we are going to dig into some things happening with this offense, and I'm pretty convinced that the upside is a lot better than we've seen from Mahomes in fantasy, especially over the past 2 years. I'm pretty excited about this play. Let's start with why. So we're here in the weekly pass rate over expectation report. Just looking since week 12, so Mahomes' last 6 games, weeks 12 through 17, the Chiefs have gone back to being incredibly pass heavy. 12% pass rate over expectation over this span. The Bengals have been pass heavier in their 5 games. Over the full season, a 12% PRO would lead the entire league. They have just abandoned the run, and it makes sense because Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco are not getting the job done right now if you've watched any Chiefs games. And not only have they abandoned the run overall, they have abandoned the run especially inside the 10-yard line, which is critically important for Patrick Mahomes' fantasy upside. So we're in the run pass report here. We have all these sections just breaking down pass rates inside the 10, inside the 20 when they're leading. Really cool and underrated tool that you should definitely use if you're a Fantasy Points Data Suite subscriber. But I've done the same thing. I've filtered for the past 6 games, and you can see, the Chiefs third in pass rate inside the 10-yard line, up here with the Cardinals and Saints and, teams that have had trouble running the ball, the Jets. Insane that they're this high in terms of pass rate inside the 10, especially when you compare it to earlier in the season. So if we go weeks 1 through 11 and hit apply there, it's going to take a second to chug here, but you will see the Chiefs all the way down here at 15th in pass rate inside the 10 earlier in the season. That's a pretty big uptick, up over 70% over their last 6 games again. So to review, we've seen a renewed focus on the pass from this Chiefs team, and Patrick Mahomes has been getting all of these additional weapons back. Obviously, they added DeAndre Hopkins mid-season. Hollywood Brown has only played 2 games, but he got up to a 51% route share in week 17. Xavier Worthy has been actually running a lot of routes over the past few games. They've got him in this new kind of gadgety screen heavy role, and it's actually been working for him, letting him make plays with the ball in his hands. This group of 4 weapons, when you add in obviously playoff Travis Kelce, we know Travis Kelce doesn't try until the playoffs either, especially old Travis Kelce. you've got this group of 4 guys, and this is arguably the deepest group of weapons that Mahomes has had, at least since 2021 with Tyreek Hill. But yeah, this is deeper than the rookie Rashee Rice and Kelsey he had last year, than basically just Kelsey that he had in 2022. This is a more high-powered Chiefs passing attack than we have really ever been used to in the recent past. And again, as I mentioned at the top, Mahomes is at his cheapest price that we have literally ever seen since his second game as a starter. I am really big into the Pat Mahomes stacks this weekend in DFS. I don't think he's going to be a popular play. You obviously need the Texans to keep up. You've got to bring it back with at least one of Nico Collins or Joe Mixon, probably Nico Collins if we want an up-tempo game. But yeah, I really like this contrarian angle going from Mahomes. He's much cheaper than all of these other high upside quarterbacks on the slate. So yeah, that's me shilling my Chiefs stacks for this weekend. But we can move on now to the second data point, and we're going to talk about Terry McLaurin, who has had a really, really great season, especially on the go route. He has just had an amazing vertical connection with Jaden Daniels all season. And I was inspired, I should say, by a Matt Harmon tweet that was talking about this. Harmon, I think, also wrote a long article about Terry McLaurin and how amazing he's been on the deep ball this year. But we can see how this plays out here in the data suite, especially with this matchup against the Lions this weekend. So we're in advanced receiving defense. And you can actually, if you didn't know, just click each individual route for which route you want to be included that was targeted on the play, hit apply, and all of the stats that you're seeing here are all accumulated only when the offense targeted a receiver on a go route. And based on that, you can see that the Lions have given up the second most receiving yards per game to go routes. And just to go back to McLaurin for a second, I've done the same thing here, just in advanced receiving, looking at go routes. McLaurin leads the league in receiving yards this year, just on the go route. You can see also a 60% air yard share on the go route. That's behind only John Ross with 1 game and Rashid Shaheed, rest in peace, my king. But yeah, McLaurin has just been an incredible vertical weapon, running him on all these goes. And again, that's what the Lions have been vulnerable to. And his usage overall has been very good recently as well. So I've just filtered here for his last 7 games, so since week 12. And also what I've done here in the team filtering is I've just selected all the teams that are on this week's divisional round slate. That's kind of a feature request we get a lot, is I just want to look at whatever this week's main slate. You can absolutely do that. It just takes a second to go through and click all the teams that you want to look at. But yeah, you can filter out all the players from teams that aren't on the slate. Absolutely. But now that we've done that, you can see Terry McLaurin, 8.1 targets per game over this span, over these last 7 games. That ranks 3rd among slate eligible wide receivers, behind only Puka Nacua and Amon-Ra St. Brown. McLaurin is significantly cheaper by DraftKings salary, over $1,000 cheaper than either of these guys. So yeah, a clear usage and volume-based value as well is Terry McLaurin. So final guy I want to talk about actually is Puka Nacua. Funny that he just came up. So in the wild card game, we saw the Rams come out and heavily target Tyler Higbee as part of their offense. In the first quarter, that is, until he left the game with a chest injury. He was hospitalized. Sounds like he has a chance for this weekend, actually, but very likely won't be at 100%. But what we can do in the data suite here is just say, okay, we're going to assume Tyler Higbee is not going to be a huge part of the offense this weekend, whether it's because he sits out or because he's limited. So what happened in this Rams passing attack after Higbee left the game? So we're just removing the first quarter of the wild card game here. And you can see, I guess not super surprising, Puka Nacua with a 45% first read target share after Higbee left the game. Very notably, should say, Cooper Kupp, only 11 routes, less than Demarcus Robinson, only one target after Higbee left the game. Yeah, Kupp has just kind of disappeared. I had a tweet out earlier about his separation score being very down from earlier in the year. Might be dealing with an injury. Maybe he's washed. Regardless, the answer is just that this offense is Puka Nacua in its entirety, essentially. So, difficult matchup against the Eagles this week, I should say, though. So, we're here in schedule adjusted fantasy points per game allowed. You got to scroll down a long way to find the Eagles defense here. If you sort by out wide fantasy points allowed, they're dead last. So yeah, for outside wide receivers, this is the toughest matchup of the season, right? You can see they're about average against the slot, only a negative 0.6 fantasy points per game difference there. So I would call the Eagles a slot funnel. And you might say, Ryan, that sounds like you're trying to talk me into Cooper Kupp again. I'm not trying to talk you into Cooper Kupp again. And here's why. Because against slot funnels that the Rams have recently faced, Sean McVay has just said, okay, Puka's our best player. We're going to put him in the slot. What a crazy concept, right? So back here in advanced receiving, I've gone ahead, selected all the games through the wild card using the split function here. So we're splitting by week and by opponent. We have typed Nacua into the search bar, and this just gives us a nice game log when we sort by week of each of Puka Nacua's recent games. And as you can see, I've brought out the wide route percentage and slot route percentage. And you can see here against the Bills in week 14 and against the Jets in week 16, both teams that are major slot funnels. You've probably heard me talk about both of those teams as slot funnels at different points this season. Nacua up to a 63% slot rate and a 47% slot rate. I would be very unsurprised if we see similar this weekend because, again, Sean McVay is a smart coach. He wants to get the best matchup possible for his only remaining viable wide receiver. So all that said, I really like Nacua on the slate this weekend. And just as a final way to kind of push that point, we're here in the route share report. I'm only showing you guys this so that you know which games I'm taking. I'm not just cherry picking games. So week 1, Nacua barely played, got hurt very early. Week 9, I believe, was the ejection game. So you can see in those games, he was under a 50% route share. I just want to look at games where he ran over half the routes. So week 8, weeks 10 through 17. Back here in advanced receiving, again, that's what I did. Week 8, weeks 10 through 17. I've done the same thing, just including only teams and receivers that are on this slate. And Puka just leads the entire slate in all of these categories. So almost 105 receiving yards per game in his healthy games, 3.9 yards per out run almost, which is insane. Next closest being A.J. Brown at just over 3. Close with A.J. Brown with a 44% first read target share. Leads in fantasy points per game, leads in expected fantasy points per game. These are all the important stats. These are all the ones that I think matter the most for fantasy, for DFS. And yeah, I mean, Nacua just clearly blows out the rest of the slate in all of them whenever he has played a remotely full game. So that's going to be it, guys. So thanks for, as always, checking out data points with me this week. And remember, you can always go to data.fantasypoints.com to sign up for access to the data suite for yourself. Again, we have a standalone data suite subscription. We have the all-in package, and we have the early bird specials running right now. So make sure you get over there. Good luck this weekend, guys. I hope you have an amazing divisional round slate.